Good morning. We are here several weeks following the fatal police shooting of Amir Locke. Yesterday, youth demonstrated outside of Mayor Frey's home, demanding not only that he resign, but also to terminate the officer who fatally shot Amir. This has come after almost daily protests where folks have not only asked for the mayor's resignation in light of the way he has handled or mishandled this case, but also asking that the interim police chief resign as well. She had only been in the position for about a month before Amir was fatally shot. But the reason why so much pressure and emphasis has been put on Mayor Frey is because he had campaigned specifically on banning no knock warrants. And so, how is it in a city where the mayor used his political platform to talk about why it was important to ban no knock warrants and then turn around? Here we are, just what, 3 months after he's reelected, and a 22-year-old is fatally shot. While police were executing a no knock warrant. I want you guys to take a listen to the youth who came out last night to ask that Mayor Frey resign from his position. Take a listen.
Amir Locke, say his name! Amir Locke! Say his name! Amir Locke! Say his name! Amir Locke! When black lives are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back!
It's always the same story, or even a different story, a different name, same outcome. Our children 10 years from now, 15 years from now, shouldn't live in this type of society, so we have to change something.
I hate Mayor Frey. He's literally a murderer, and he is complicit to murders that's been happening in Minneapolis. He lied. He said that there's going to be no more no-knock warrants. He literally said that. And Amir Locke died as a result of that lie. And he literally went to George Floyd's funeral and went on his knees and cried. But he was the same one to overfund the police department that murdered George Floyd. Mayor Frey does not need to be mayor. I shouldn't even be calling him Mayor Frey. He needs to be fired immediately. Say, go home, Jacob. 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 Go home, Jacob.
So there, Ben and Brother Mac, we heard from youth. These are voices that typically you don't hear from at the protests that normally happen. And this was very intentional by organizers who wanted to make sure that our youth are being heard in this moment, right? Children who are the future. Some of them have been able to vote. Some of them aren't even old enough to vote yet. But the consensus among them all is that they have lost confidence in the leadership of the mayor of Minneapolis.
Yeah. Sister Fortin, the thing that you just said that I think is so powerful is that when you have these young people involved and they remember what Mayor Frey said about no-knock warrants, and now they're watching him roll that back, they're putting all the pieces together of how he went to the George Floyd funeral, how he, the so-called passion that he had for that, and now how he's walked that back. And so when they're saying he ought to be fired, go home, that means that they understand the power of their vote.
That's right.
And when they get to a position like that, it's not just Mayor Frey that they're going to now pay attention to in their local community, but they are now understanding why that power to vote is just that. It is so incredibly powerful. And now when you look at that, now they'll understand why you have these efforts around voter suppression. So I am so incredibly proud of what these young people are doing. But more importantly, it shows that they were paying attention to what is happening politically that has led to these situations in their daily lives.
Yeah. And that second sister who said, she said, overfunding the police. And I'm like, that's the first time I heard it said like that. Stop. They overfund the police. And I just, out of the mouths of children comes like so much wisdom. That's how we need to describe it going further. They want to attack us for saying that we need to defund the police. And we have seen in Georgia, you're on the front lines covering all the reasons we need to have that conversation about defunding the police. Right, all the tanks, all of the military grade weaponry, all the stuff that comes down to bear on Black communities specifically is because they are overfunded. And they don't like it when I slogan near, but that's going to be what I say from now on. Stop overfunding the police. So I have to salute that young sister as well, as everyone else that was out there making a stand last night.
Speaking of overfunding the police, I received a press release from Governor Tim Walz yesterday announcing that he will be allocating $300 million to public safety statewide. I thought this was an interesting response in his press release. He didn't mention at all anything about police killings, rather the uptick in community violence. And he had a few quotes from police chiefs who preside over districts that are considered suburbs, which, is also interesting because you hear mainly of the violent crimes happening in the inner city. So if you're allocating these huge funds for public safety to hear from police chiefs in districts that are not as affected, it seemed like, again, there was some disconnect in messaging here, but also I imagine that he anticipates some kickback because, yes, while there has been an uptick in gun violence, and we'll talk about cases like Deshaun Hill coming up, a 15-year-old star athlete and honor roll student who was just shot on his way walking to a bus stop, right? Yes, our communities are plagued with gun violence, and this is happening all across America. But I thought that communities of color made it extremely clear that dumping tons of money into these police departments isn't the answer. As we see here with Amir Locke, that they still don't have proper policies or training in place to prevent the execution of innocent Black men.